Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings,
And ourselves.
we stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world heroes among us and every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts. Together we can grow a better place with love in our soul. And you will find together we can save it all. And you will find a place called home, where
We cover digital, audio, workstations, and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and MIDI too. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac, and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Come and join in and have some fun.
Right here. Just like last time.
No, it's highly educational.
And lots of fun.
Yes, and we're gonna, the tip part of this intro we're gonna be hitting tonight. We've got some tips and some tools. We're gonna look at a couple of useful things.
Gotta love it. Tips are good. Tools are good. Techniques are good. A lot of good teas out there.
Yes, we're gonna top all our teas.
Nice.
And actually, we'll jump to the cave, and we'll see what we've got. Starting with the top, music attorney, Miss Crystal. We love you, and every week she's covering a bunch of things in the music industry. The AI stuff is what we really stick to the most there, but she does cover a lot of the musical legalities and things that we get a lot of questions ourselves, and I wanted to include this one because it's one of the questions we get the most often when it comes to song licensing, and the two big ones, BMI and ASCAP. This is a question we hear constantly. Should I go with BMI or should I go with ASCAP? Or
do I need both?
Is there, is there an alternate approach? And I'm really curious what she suggests here.
Indeed. Always good to hear what she has to say about that.
Yeah. And Music by Maddie, a channel we've looked at a couple of times for some music theory tips and other things, but he put together a really cool tool that I think this is worth checking out if you do your own vocal mixing and you're wondering, is my vocal mix good? He actually built a tool to help to analyze some of the EQing and things that you have to do with vocal mixing, and looks like it's really useful.
Nice. One thing I would say is that there's a bunch of different singing styles, so I'm sure there are certain styles that would be more useful for than others, because I could already picture some in my head that would be very hard to analyze in certain ways, but that would be something that you'd know going in. So
yeah, I'm curious as to what he's actually breaking down as the tool analyzes things. I know the frequencies, the EQing is the big part of it, which is useful if you're learning how to EQ yourself. It doesn't hurt to have a little help in suggesting where's the frequencies that need adjustment.
The other good question would be what the software uses as parameters for where the vocal should sit level wise in with the rest of the mix. Like if you have the vocal and it's sitting at 90% and the rest of the mix is sitting at 50%, that's one kind of music, but another style of music would be completely flipped. So it depends on the genre too.
He's going to show how it works, and he's going to put it through a couple of tests.
Nice.
And This is one we've looked at some of these products, but the Prism software he's using here, this one's new to me. And you know how I am with Melodyne. I love that Melodyne can help to interpret audio and kind of give you MIDI, and it does an okay job, but it's not perfect. And what Hi-Fi MIDI is going to show you here is a conversion workflow that's much more impressive on the accuracy. And he goes from audio to MIDI using Prism, and then takes what he gets from Prism to go into Riffer, which is part of the you remember the ample guitars that we looked at last year?
Yep.
The guitar engine that's in there, Riffer, when you take this MIDI and you're running it through this, it's really impressive at how accurate it picks up guitar translations.
Nice. And even with the fast notes, right? Because that's the whole thing.
Well, yeah, I'd like to actually see some tests with faster guitar, but the tests he does here are good ones because it's the guitar to MIDI that's some of the most complicated to change over to MIDI. A lot of times the MIDI doesn't pick up the nuances of multiple notes in the guitar properly. And going through this process, he gets surprisingly accurate guitar translation.
And even sometimes they have, the multiple guitar tracks. So it's like, which guitar is it, and how, and how good the software is about pulling this track apart from that track when there are multiple guitars with similar tone.
Yeah, before I go through this process, I would recommend splitting the tracks as best as possible and not try to shove multiple guitar in one track with this. Otherwise, your mileage is going to vary.
Yep, exactly.
And then Audio Masterclass, freshy channel for us. Been here a couple of times for a few things, but I had no idea they were thinking about this with Ethernet cables, analog audio over Ethernet. It intrigued me. I'm kind of curious, what's the use cases here? What are they trying to build to utilize Ethernet cables to actually send analog audio data through, not digital?
Right. And it depends on how much you're trying to mix things down from, a snake, essentially, where you're plugging in a bunch of XLRs or a bunch of 1/4 inch things and having them come down into one small Ethernet cable and then go somewhere.
Yeah. And we've seen Ethernet utilized in snakes but it's digital typically. Right. So this is a little different and very unique when it comes to using Ethernet cables this way.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It depends on what kind of translation's going on at each end, like you were saying, like what exactly is happening there.
Yeah. And I had to get this one in here because you showed me a battery a couple of years ago that, a clean battery. And I guess they are thinking about it. They're trying different approaches. And this iron air battery, which you might be familiar with this approach here, 100-hour storage. And this isn't going to, like, your laptops are not going to be getting affected by this because this kind of battery technology isn't for that sector. It's more about like being able to store large amounts. Power generation's not really our big obstacle. Storing power for when we actually do need it, because the power grid goes up and down in usage.
Yeah.
Being able to build these kinds of batteries that the costs start to go dramatically down if they can get this to work properly. This could be a long-term game changer in how we store excess energy for later.
Yeah, and there've been so many different ideas for how to do that. Whether it's pumped hydro or you're pumping water up a hill and then using it when it comes back down to get yourself electricity. So many different ways that you can do using energy now to get us power later. But the idea is by having so many different options in the mix, it'll help balance out the supply and demand. Because the main thing, as you were saying, is matching the supply with the demand.
Yeah.
We know how much we can generate. Like we have that as a known quantity, and then the question is how much demand is there at any given moment, and we have to try to match those as closely as we can.
How much are we going to lose if we go throw it into a inferior battery that you end up losing some of that power along the way?
Sure. And I've seen some where they're doing energy storage in heat instead of as electricity. So that's another way, because you can use that heat, and extract electricity from that again later. Same thing with the pumped hydro. You're actually using the electricity to pump water up a hill, and then you'll use gravity and pulling that water back down the hill to generate electricity later when you need more.
Yep.
So there's a number of different ways to do it, but I'd love to see any of them. I have seen a couple of different types of liquid flow batteries that this may be part of what's going on here. I've seen a couple that they've just come around with a couple of solid state battery types, and I haven't seen the results on those yet, but there's a number of things that look very
interesting things there. Yeah, I've come across a few of those videos too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like that kind of thing would open up electric aviation more than it is already. And that's one of those things, because weight is so important and power density is so important when it comes to and reliability, of course. But.
Yeah. Well, this one's coming from Just Have a Think.
Nice.
Which we will have a think on that one, because this is one of those topics me and Glenn actually talk about in the back rooms.
Oh, yeah. And this is one of the channels that I love. I mean, I go to this channel a lot.
Yeah, we're going to think about it.
That's right.
And then to finish things off, David Bendeth. I love what he talks about here. It goes back to like we were covering workflow a couple of weeks ago, and with the tune tracks and having a certain kind of workflow when you're putting together a song. What David talks about here is it's not really a trick. I think of it more as a philosophy.
Right.
What he talks about, and it's
a mindset.
Yeah, it's about how you approach the song that you're trying to record and the song that you're trying to write, and where dynamics kind of come from, layering, part changes, all of that. He puts some real thought into how to get the dynamics as the song progresses, as the song builds up.
That is so important too. That's one of those that I think I've talked to you about a couple of times, from one of the Victor Wooten. I don't know if it was the masterclass or if it was just a video that he had that was like a bass, 2-hour long bass special that he did. But that was one of the important factors that he talked about, was the building and the crescendo, and then bringing it back down. Have the crowd come up with it and then bring it back down, and then bring another soloist up and bringing that up and bring it back down. Like, those dynamics are very important, and understanding how that works, how to manipulate the audience in that way, not manipulate in a bad way, but manipulate in terms of you're trying to take them on a ride, right? So you got to bring them along to where you want them to go emotionally.
Yeah, I think when you do it right, you're leading the audience through the song, and
right.
Audiences like that. They actually respond to certain subliminal things in music that make them want to stand up and scream, and there's moments in the song that actually do bring the audience to what you want for a reaction.
And they might not even know why. I mean, they know how they want to respond to it, but they don't know, what mechanism that is. But when you go through it and you really dissect what's happening there, you can make that happen on demand. So you could have that, you could make it a cliche. You could do that too many times in a song and have it be a problem. But, the idea is to do it in the appropriate points and really have it click, whether it's going into a chorus, coming out of something else. There's spots in the song you might want to use that.
Yeah. And it's not important for the audience to know why they're responding like that, but you as the songwriter, it is kind of important to understand what you're doing there. Otherwise, you're not fully utilizing these techniques.
Exactly. Another T, techniques.
Yeah. We're going to be full of T's by the end of this.
All right.
But we're going to start with the top music attorney, Miss Crystal, and I've got links to all her. She's got multiple channels. She's got the Delgado Law channel, great for general law information. Top Music Attorney is the awesome channel for music legal advice. And then Miss Crystal Live, she's a musician too. She doesn't just play one on TV, and
that's right.
She's got a ton of material on there.
Good stuff.
But here we're getting this one from @Top Music Attorney, and thing she's going to talk about here is one of the most common questions that we get in the back when artists want to license their music or get licenses to cover certain music. BMI and ASCAP are going to be the top two names that you're going to hear. There's other ones, but these are the two that the consideration is the most important.
Indeed.
They have most of the music in the world.
And what is the current state?
Yes. Really curious to see what her advice is here, because I know what I tell the ones who ask, but I trust her opinion better.
And it could have changed, right?
Yeah, sometimes it does. So that's why I like to keep up with her.
Indeed.
But which one really is better? ASCAP or BMI? You might be new to the music business game in general, and so you're seeing that you need to get registered with a performance rights organization, which is BMI and ASCAP. And actually, in the United States, there's 6 of them, right? These are just the 2 most popular. And if you're outside of the United States, it's going to be a completely different one based on the country that you're in. But in the United States, BMI, ASCAP, these are the big boys. And so which one is better? There actually is a difference between them. So we're going to kind of dive into that. Now, I said it's a performance rights organization, and what you need to know is that this is one type of royalty that you get paid in association with your music. So if you don't register, if you're not on one of these platforms, you're leaving money on the table because you don't get to collect until you register. That means all the money that may be out there in the world prior to when you register, you don't get to collect that. So please go do it ASAP. So it's a performance royalty. What it's not is a copyright registration. This is the #1 mistake and misunderstanding that people have. They think that by going and, let's say, registering their songs with BMI, they don't need to go and get a copyright registration, or that it's the same thing as a copyright registration. It's not. And then what happens because of this misunderstanding? People don't go and get their government registration for their music. Someone comes and steals your song, and it greatly impacts how much money you can go and get. So all you need to know is your copyright registration, separate process, more money. All right, so what royalties? It's public performance. So this is going to be, radio, TV, live performances, bars, restaurants, anywhere that your music can be played to the public. Those places have to go get licenses with these different organizations. They get the license, they collect the money, and then they pay you. So all you need to do is get an account set up. All right, so let's do a little side-by-side comparison, starting with just the general business model. So with ASCAP, ASCAP is still a nonprofit organization versus BMI. BMI is for profit. Now, that may or may not make a difference for you, but some people might argue that BMI is a little more motivated because it's a for-profit organization to get all the money. Now, besides that, at the end of the day, these two entities are essentially doing the same thing. There's a little difference in the percentages, though, that they are taking as their fee. With ASCAP, the fee is typically between 10 to 12%. With BMI, it's typically 10 to 15%. When it comes to live performance payments, there also is a difference. ASCAP tends to move a little slower, and this has to do with additional verification steps versus BMI. And I've been with BMI for a while. The process seems to be a little bit faster, and they just seem to be kind of more aggressive in making sure the live performances are accounted for and that you get paid as soon as possible. So for me, BMI is going to win on the live performance category. Now, on international royalties, there is, again, a difference, which is with ASCAP, ASCAP has an additional fee. But it does seem like ASCAP does this a little bit better in general. And for me, the other thing I really greatly care about is the general payout timing. And I found that BMI seems to take a little bit longer, a couple months more, on how long it takes for the money to actually hit your account. Now, this might be the most important section of this entire video, so we're going to rapid fire, which is the most important things that you need to know. Let's go. When you are registering your music for collection, you actually do not upload your musical file. You just have to say the name, you give some metadata, you give some additional information like how long the song is, but you don't upload the file, and it's because It's the public performance related to your composition. And the composition is not the audio file. For you music producers registering your beats, I know you have like hundreds of unfinished beats saved on your computer. You don't need to go and register every single one of these beats. What I would say is wait till you have the finished versions, right, that you're planning to release. Register those. When it comes to registering albums, you do need to register each song separately, and this is just how it goes in musical land. There is a separate code, there is a separate tracking for every single song, even if you put it on an EP and an album. That's how it goes with these platforms. So if you're registering on ASCAP, you have to do each song one at a time. Now, let's talk AI songs. This has come up on, well, can you? If your song is 100% made with AI, the answer is no. These platforms are not going to allow you to register and collect royalties, and they kind of mirror what the Copyright Office does. So if it's 100% made with AI, can't do it. But if your song is made in conjunction with AI, and there are elements that you own, you came up with the chords, you came up with the lyrics, obviously check each platform, but amongst the biggest ones that we have seen, they do allow you to register and collect in those circumstances. And this is a biggie. When it comes to publishing, a lot of people won't collect on these platforms because they go, well, don't I have to get a music publisher? So I can't collect my publishing, right? The public performance, the publishing. I can't collect anything until I actually get a publisher, so they just never go and register. Please, you can go and collect all your publishing right now for the songs you have written. There's a writer's share, there's a publisher share. Guess what? It all belongs to you if it is your song. The only time that you start to share stuff is if you do a deal with a music publisher or if you set up your own publishing company. In fact, I just recently released a video on how to set up your own publishing company if that's what you want to do. All right. And I mentioned that the copyright registration piece of this is so important. This ties very much into class action lawsuits that we have filed against AI companies for stealing music, not giving credit, not paying compensation to music creators. But here's the thing, you can join no matter what. If you had your music on music platforms in the last couple of years, you're good to go. Just go to indieailawsuit.com. And in fact, I'm gearing up for oral argument against Suno later this month. Email updates to come. I'm top music attorney, Miss Crystal, and I'll see you on the next one.
Oh, that video about starting your own publishing is a great one. Everybody should check that.
Yeah. And go register your music.
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of curious that there's not one answer here. You know, it really does depend whether you're just focusing on recording and putting out that way or whether you are performing. And sounds like BMI has an advantage on that side of things.
Yeah, and I do love the fact that you put them side by side in that way to say that this one seems better in this way, this one seems better in that way, and just kind of let you make your own decision about which aspects are more important.
Yeah, and I'm surprised there isn't any mention of CSAC, because I think that's the one for like European markets. And when she mentioned like international distribution, sometimes you got to go to other places as well in some cases.
I think when she mentioned the 6 organizations that were out there, like these are the 2, the BMI and the ASCAP were the big boys, as she said, but there were at least 6, and I think CSAC might have been one of the 6, but if not, as it would have been in that next one, which was when you get to international, it's time to whole nother ball game.
Yeah, if you're really focused on the entire world, you're going to hear a couple of other names. In the American market, ASCAP feels like it's been around forever, and BMI really has like made a name for their initials.
Absolutely.
But it's great advice, Crystal. I'd rather send people to you to get that answer than keep answering every week when I get asked.
Yep. And they'll find something else fun to check out while they're there.
Yeah, at Top Music Attorney. We'll be checking you out again tomorrow. Oh, and she does live streams on Wednesday nights that are really popular. I know we're whipping it out on Wednesday, so I tend to miss them, but I go afterwards to catch up on them.
Nice.
Yeah, and definitely check out her music channel, folks. She is a workhorse on the music side. She got a bunch of material, some covers, original material. She is going.
Nice.
So now we're going to look at a tool that might help you to fix your vocal mixes. If you're wondering, like, is my vocal mix up to par? Sometimes you can't really tell when you're in the middle of the mix, and the idea of a tool like this, where it's focused kind of on the EQing side of what you have to do in a vocal mix. I like the idea of having an analyzer like this to just kind of check my vocal mixes and see if I'm not hitting the mark like I think I am in my ears.
Yeah, the first step I would say would be the a reference track where a song of the style that you're shooting for. Like if there is a particular band or a particular style that that is like what you're shooting for, listen to that, listen to yours, listen back and forth, and see if it is falling into that range. Again, vocal being at an appropriate level, vocal having the appropriate elements there for the EQ. If that all seems intact, then a tool like this would be great for analyzing and refining further. Otherwise, you're going to go into this tool and it's going to be like, oh, you need to work on everything. If you do just go in cold, you might have a surprise that you really need work everywhere.
Yeah, and actually, I like that suggestion of if you incorporate, Maddie, a reference track like sample, that it can actually, like, I want it to sound like this. That would just make it even that more useful.
And again, a lot depends on style as well. Like, certain styles of music, it's going to be very heavy vocal. Certain styles are going to be very light, very airy. It all depends on the style.
Yeah, I'd be curious how it analyzes Jason's mixes.
Hardcore
metal.
That was somebody who I had in mind when it came to the vocals. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is coming from @music.by.maddie, and you can also find him musicbymaddie.com. He's got a mothership, and he's going to show us this tool that he built and show it in action and what it's actually analyzing, listening for, and what could be useful.
Yeah. And which things you need to tweak. And again, seeing how the parameters are tweaked in the actual tool can tell you, how you would need to adjust to get your files to sound the way you want them to.
Yeah. Show us, Maddie, how to improve our voices.
Yes, please.
Why does my vocal sound wrong? Most people have no idea what's actually wrong with their vocal. They just add EQ, compression, saturation, and then pray that it sounds good. Please. But if you don't know the actual problem, you're mixing blind or deaf. To help with this, I built a free tool that scores your vocal from 0 to 100 and shows you how you can improve it. And in this video, I'll show you how it works so that you don't have to spend another 45 minutes fiddling around with compressor settings. And yes, that means you. Oh yeah. So here is the tool. It's called Vocal Analyzer. I know, groundbreaking name, but the way it works is pretty simple. You choose some settings down here and you upload your stuff, or you can even record your own voice into the browser. And when you do that, it will go through, it'll analyze the frequencies, it'll analyze the dynamics, the sibilance, as well as the recording quality. And then it will weight all of those and give you a final score. 49. This was the intro vocal that you heard at the beginning of the video. And yes, it obviously needs some work. Why does my vocal sound wrong? Let's take a look at some of the quirks of this by analyzing another comically bad vocal. This vocal is bad, 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 bad. This vocal itself was recorded by turning the capsule around 180 degrees. It sounds not that good, but in all honesty, it sounds better than some of the recordings I get sent. So I plugged it in to see what it would get. 51. That's an improvement. That's 2 points improvement. Now let's look at where the tool recommends I improve. There's some harsh mid-range energy that's going to be fatiguing to listen to on repeat. absolutely. I mean, it doesn't sound great. This vocal is bad, 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 bad. Good singing all around, but you can just tell that the recording quality wasn't there. If we scroll down, we can get some more information on that exactly. I'll take a look at the signal chain and the frequency balance and dynamics in a second, but I want to go to the detailed breakdown, which is where this score kind of makes sense for you. It analyzes your vocal in 4 different categories, weighting them differently with the percentages you see below, with frequency, dynamics, and recording at 30% and then sibilance at 10. The tool compares your vocal to a quote-unquote standard vocal for the genre that you've selected and then gives you a score based on how similar it is. You can click into any of these boxes to figure out what's going right or what's going wrong. It's not going to physically know that I turned the capsule around 180 degrees, but if you're getting a 29 recording score, just go back and re-record. But let's try another take with an actually good recorded vocal. All I wanna do is mix it right. The capsule's facing the right way and the vocal sounds like something I would actually use on a real record. Let's see how it scored. And take a look at this. 81. Now notice it's still not 100. I generally consider anything above 80 to be thumbs up, I'm good to go. I can definitely use it on my track, but obviously this wasn't perfect. Let's see what the main takeaways were that we should improve. The main reason why this wasn't perfect was the vocal sounds thin, according to these calculations, and lacking body below 500 hertz. Pretty typical for my own personal voice. I don't have a booming, boom voice. I have a pretty thin voice. And then some room reflections were audible as well. I do have acoustic panels up, but I wasn't recording in a vocal booth. I just have some treatment up. But now let's explore some of the real recommendations it would give to help fix that. This part will be customized for your specific voice, but in this case, it says to start off with gain. It calculates the exact value that you need to increase or decrease your vocal by to get it to negative 18 dBs, which is a good spot for vocals to be. In this case, around +7. Next up, it recommends a high pass. Always love that on a voice. Next up, it recommends a slight boost in the low mids. Then it gives you a great starting point for the exact compressor settings that you can throw on your vocal. Let me put these exact settings in my DAW on this same vocal and A/B them so you can hear what the before and after sounds like. Minus 20.5. That's gonna work. And here's the before. All I wanna do is mix it right. And the after. All I wanna do is mix it right. Fantastic starting point for your voice. But that's not all this thing can do when it comes to raw vocals. It actually can affect fully mixed vocals and give you suggestions on how to improve them. So let's explore that feature because the algorithms behind what it actually counts are completely different. A lot of times raw vocals have a lot more of that low mid-range recording. A lot of times raw vocals are way more dynamic than their processed counterparts. But let me show you one final example with an actual vocal that I recorded for a demo of mine. I've walked down 100 different roads. Make sure to click on mix, browse, upload this vocal, and we'll see what kind of score we're working with. Looks like we got 80. The biggest things that it says to fix are some of the sibilants, which I kind of agree with. What's cool about this processed vocal and even the raw vocals is we have a lot of options down here that can really tailor these results to our specific vocal. That's why I called it tailor. We got male versus female, which gives slightly different results. You can select a genre of music, which will give a customized vocal curve for that specific music type. And then finally, we have different mic types. USB versus a phone, laptop, or you just have no idea. It's an option too. Now, take this with a grain of salt. This is all suggestions. This tool is not designed to completely replace producers. It's just designed to get you a good starting point. So that's enough of me explaining this thing. You probably are itching to get your hands on it, and you totally can. It's free. Link is in the description below. Go and test it out for yourself. Upload one of your own vocals and see what score you get. I'll give you some brownie points if you can get a vocal that is above a 90. Might be harder than you might think. And I'll also give you brownie points on the other end of the spectrum if you can manage to get a vocal below 10. But go out and try this for yourself. If you've enjoyed this vocal analyzer tool that I built, I think you'll really enjoy this tool I built right up here, which shows the mathematically perfect compressor settings to use on your next track.
Nice.
Oh, Glenn, we're going to record your voice. We're going to get it in there. We're going to get above 90 and get some brownies.
Boom, boom, boom.
We're gonna get some low.
It actually is analyzing more than I thought, and the suggestions. I like that he emphasized like this is not like a end all solution. It's suggestions, but they're good suggestions from what I saw there.
Yep.
It's listening to dynamics. It's listening to the recording capture. It's analyzing the thickness of the voice.
Even the room reflections.
Yeah.
The fact that it can analyze and tell you that that's one of the issues, tells you to basically change your room treatment or change something about your recording setup and try again.
Yeah. And I know if I was pulling some of the BandLab tracks that I have to work with sometimes, it would be like, why is there a washer and a dryer in the background?
And an airplane at 12 seconds.
There's always a fucking airplane.
Right,
or police. Police
Something.
driving by.
You know what that means? Play louder. That's right.
That
you
was
can always drown it out.
That was coming from musicbymaddie.com. That's his mothership. And at music.by.maddie over on YouTube. Great production tips there. And that looks like a very useful tool that I will be testing out.
Absolutely.
Hey, and we got Curmudgeon in the house. If anybody can get a 90 with his voice, Danny, it's you.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely.
So now we're going to go into a little bit of a workflow here. Going from audio to MIDI, typically Melodyne's been my go-to. It's built into most DAWs, and it works okay, but it's not even close to perfect, especially when you're trying to get acoustic guitar, or even worse, electric guitar. Melodyne can have a real tough time figuring out like all the notes being hit in the chord or in the arpeggio. What Hi-Fi MIDI is going to show us here is a process of going from audio to MIDI utilizing PRISM, a piece of software that he's going to show. And the results here are so much better than what I've seen with other audio to MIDI solutions that are out there.
Nice.
Yep. At Hi-Fi MIDI, not a freshie for us. We've been here for a couple of different software and tip reviews. And we might have actually gone here when we were looking at that Ample Studio, like all their virtual guitars, the Strummer, which we're going to see in this video.
Right.
For me as a keyboardist, I really like the Ample guitar plugins because I feel like I'm a guitarist playing on something that I'm very comfortable using.
You get that comfortable format, but you're getting the sound that you're looking for.
Yeah. And what's cool with the way he does this here, when you do go from the MIDI actually doesn't sound bad with PRISM just through the conversion. But when you run that MIDI into the Ample guitar afterwards and you use the what they call the Riffer, it really starts to sound like what the original audio sounded like, except you've got MIDI notes to tweak and adjust and do whatever you want to.
Yeah, and that's what you have all the fun with, like whether it's just a little bit of dynamics here and there, or whether it's sustained, whatever. You can change these little things that can add nuance, that give that humanization to the project.
Yeah, and the beauty with MIDI, I can change the guitar.
Exactly.
I don't want a steel string. I want a nylon.
Yeah. I want that telly sound.
Well, I want them all eventually.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see how this workflow works. I think you're going to be impressed with this PRISM.
All right.
Hey friends, it's Ruben with Hi-Fi MIDI. One of my subscribers emailed me wanting to convert audio to MIDI and then using that in Riffer. And they asked me if Logic or Cubase's was better. So in this video, I hope to answer that question and provide a better alternative to both of them. I'm going to drag an audio file onto a track. And then this is what it sounds like. In order to convert that into MIDI within Logic, you double click on the track, enable flex time, select flex pitch, and now it's analyzed the notes. Then I'll convert this to MIDI by selecting create MIDI track from flex pitch data. And here's something a lot of people don't know about guitar, is that the sound you hear is written an octave below what's actually played. So you have to move the notes an octave higher. So I'll go ahead and do that here, because this is what it's going to sound like. So let's go ahead and move this up. As you can hear, it didn't analyze those notes correctly. Not only are the notes wrong, but the rhythms are too short. So let's listen to how it sounds in Cubase. Just like in Logic, I'm going to drag the audio file onto the track, make sure it's playing at the same pitch. Then I'm going to double click on this, go to Vary Audio, reanalyze audio, and now you can see the MIDI, then extract MIDI. Let's listen to what this sounds like on the Ample soundtrack. I might have to shift this an octave again. And that sounds terrible. One of the reasons a lot of these programs have issues analyzing the audio is because in certain instruments like guitar or violin, there are so many harmonics sounding at the same time that it doesn't do a good job detecting the fundamental. Now, there is this program called PRISM that I just downloaded recently. I'm still in trial mode, but I think I'm going to end up buying it. This works as an ARA plugin, meaning that it's integrated in your DAW once you buy it. You don't add it to the track. So I'll click on the audio, go to Audio, Extensions, and PRISM. And it's already analyzed it. Now I can drag this MIDI onto my Ample soundtrack. And let's go ahead and listen to that. Now, as you can see, it detected the notes and the rhythm. All of these notes are held. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that into Riffer. And I'm going to lower the velocity. And let's listen to that. That sounds really good. At this point, you can start refining it by choosing which strings are being played. Of course, you can go deeper into the programming, but I think this is a great software or alternative to either of those. I do like using it in Cubase because Cubase has a great ARA integration. But let me know if this helped you out. I'll leave a link in the description to this software. It's not an affiliate link, so I don't get paid for it. But I just thought this would be helpful to you. If this video was helpful, if you liked it, please hit that like button. If you're new to my channel, Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to stay up to date with my latest videos. Thanks for watching.
Oh, Ruben, that is very useful to me.
Yeah, that did a
Something I
solid
have
job.
I've been seeking good conversion forever.
Yeah.
and
And it was a perfect example of why you need it when looking at those first two examples of how the extraction worked out.
yeah, when you see how PRISM actually got the nuances of certain notes being held as other notes, because you know how a guitar works. There's the way that you're strumming or the way that you're arpeggiating, some notes are still being held while other notes are being starting to be played.
Yep.
And when you do it this way, you actually get a lot of those important nuances.
And the only like one difference that jumped out to my ear was like there's one part towards the end of the phrase where two notes that should hit right at the same time were a little bit staggered. And that's one that's a super easy fix where it would just be dragging that one a little bit over and you'd be fine. Like it would come out sounding exactly as you'd want it to. That it sounded like it was because they slowed down the velocity. So it's like they, instead of hitting as a flam, like on drums where you get a ba-ba, where they're hitting right behind each other, there's just a little bit too much delay, where ba-ba, and it sounds a little bit off almost. But again, easily fixed by just dragging it this way or that.
Well, you saw how he made those little adjustments at the end, and he's like, okay, we're just going to move this up a little. And it's nice that it gets close enough that all you have to do is a little bit of tweaking afterwards.
Exactly. Whereas if you started from the baseline from those other two extractions, you just basically, you saved yourself a few seconds, but you still have a lot of work to do before you're getting that to sound like that, if you ever get there. Whereas this started close enough where, again, little adjustment here or there gets you where you want to be.
Yeah, the other thing that I actually found to be real useful, his tip there about transposing up an octave, because some patches, I have this problem with my bass patches. The Halion sampler, for some reason, always does it an octave higher than what I'm actually looking for. So if I actually do keep my normal bass MIDI at where it's in the MIDI, it either doesn't make a sound or the bass is like really too low and too broken up. I have to put it up in octaves to get it to sound the way it's supposed to.
Exactly. And that's, I mean, a bass is a shorter range instrument from the lowest note to the highest note than most instruments, being only 4-string. I mean, maybe a violin would probably be, about the same, but are you using the full range on something like that? And, and where it sits in the mix. Whereas with the bass, 5-string especially, that low end, you're getting down to 30, 31 hertz. So you're already getting down to almost as low as the ear is going to hear. Like once you get down to 25 and below, you're not hearing that. Like most people won't hear that at all. You'll feel it. You'll feel it in your chest, the pumping, you'll feel the whole room vibrate, that kind of thing. But, once you get down below there. So I don't usually spend a lot of time down on that low B wide open because that is 31 hertz. Those last couple notes down there, first fret, second fret, third fret, that's low enough to get that super low sound, because most 4-string basses stop where you would be on the 5th fret on that low B string. So you got those extra couple notes down the low, but you get all the way down there, you're already almost dropping out of audible range. So you got to watch that.
Yeah, I like that he showed it, the process from multiple DAWs, because most good DAWs are going to have some form of audio to MIDI nowadays. That's become like standard. It's the air conditioner of DAWs. It now is built into them, but they tend to go the Melodyne engine, which isn't a bad one. But as you can see, like what he initially converted was all over the place. And Prism being one of those kinds of plugins that it incorporates into the DAW. It's not something you have to go load every time you got a track and you want to do that. It's something that's integrated into the DAW engine. I could see some of these DAWs leaving Melodyne if this accuracy is that much better. Hell,
I can see it saving a lot of time for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just for what, like guitar or piano. I mean, that's usually what I use it for, to figure out what the hell's being played. But there's also percussive modes that will turn drums back into MIDI, which that's super useful. Even if you are using the audio drums, it's nice to have triggered drums if you want to beef them up, or you want to add additional like boom to your bass.
Yeah. Well, and even as you were saying before, like using the format that you're comfortable with. You're comfortable on keys most. I'm comfortable on a guitar or a stringed instrument more. So like either of us could, input things on our preferred instrument and translate it through, PRISM or what have you into whatever other instrument we want. So there is the ability to keep it more natural with what you're doing and get the result you're looking for on the other end.
Yeah. And like Danny asked, in this case, he's recording the guitar, running it through the conversion. I mean, there are some solutions out there that will give you live MIDI guitar. Matter of fact, D-Main got one of them, and he can play real time on his guitar and trigger MIDI.
Nice.
It's not perfect on the latency, but it's good enough to be playable.
Yeah, and that's important. And again, depends on the style. If you're doing it's going to be a problem when you get to anything that has to do with latency. If you're trying to do super speed stuff, you're going to end up needing something on top of that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to actually go look on this Prism to see just how far you can push it on the speed side. I like what I'm seeing on the conversion side with this. Most of the time, I'd be dealing with something more like this to translate into MIDI, but I would like to be able to turn some of those solos into MIDI.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to just write out because it would just be like, da, 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 da. And when you listen back to it, it's like, yeah, you just do it fast enough.
If it can give me half the notes, I can figure out the other half.
Exactly. And to me, a lot of times it's about where, it's more about the position on the neck. Like, are we out here at the 5th fret or are we up here at the 17th fret? Like, depending where you are on the neck, that can give you, what sounds you're getting from the guitar at that point.
Yeah. Good tip there at Hi-Fi MIDI. I am definitely going to check out that Prism because I'm not happy with the results that I get out of the box with Melodyne. I like that it's at least in there and it's helped me in some cases to figure out chords and things that I'm dealing with, but I've never been able to get it to convert accurately like he just did right there.
Yep. And that is something that we've talked about before with AI coming along as it is. I mean, it's not long before we'll have AI tools doing this stuff as well, so that is another thing where, it depends. I don't think AI is involved, but if it is, I mean, it doesn't matter, but it's one of those things that, it is going to be.
Software like that probably will start to incorporate, if for nothing else, to analyze, because that's what the software is doing anyway. So it doesn't hurt to have smarter analyzation.
Exactly. Good analysis is always important.
Yeah. Very useful workflow there at Hi-Fi MIDI. And I'm really curious where they're going to utilize something like this and what the possibilities could be if you use Ethernet cables, which to me, that's digital. That's sending data. But Audio Masterclass is going to explain a new use case where they're actually talking about using Ethernet cables to send analog audio data, which I can see how it works, but I'm curious as where they would utilize this. And you'd mentioned, like, if you want a giant snake that can send tons of different analog audio tracks through one nice little 100-foot plus Ethernet, maybe that's what they're.
But as you mentioned, that was a digital snake that we were using at the time. So that is basically converting all of that. Everything that's coming into that snake is being turned to digital, sent across, and then coming into the board. But
and then turned back into analog on the other end, and it goes through a digitizing process.
Yep. So that's where the questions are. Is this about getting more signals in there and having that go across a thin Ethernet, or is it about the distance that you're traveling and being able to go further than you could on, XLR, for example? Like, those are a couple of considerations to think about.
Yeah, I thought we already had enough cables, but apparently we need more.
Spool up some more.
Yep. So at Audio Masterclass, and it's a freshie channel for us. I'm surprised we weren't there for like some of our production nights, because this channel is definitely one for that. But here he's he's going to mention a sound recording magazine that I really like to get my hands on. And that's where he actually found out about these analog Ethernet cables that I didn't know I needed, but now I do.
Let's find out.
Well, looky here, the March 2026 edition of Sound on Sound magazine, with audiophiles and hi-fi enthusiasts note, a 2-page article on analog audio over Ethernet. Yes, you heard that right. Analog audio going through digity, computery, Ethernet cables. No, neither digity nor computery is a word, yet. Oh, AI tells me that computery actually is. And digity, that is too. Who knew? This, dear audiophile, dear enthusiast, is, or at least may be relevant to you. Sit back, relax, I'm going to give you more to worry about. First things first, Sound on Sound is a magazine for recording enthusiasts, all the way up to professionals. Whereas audiophiles might focus on purity, practitioners have a strong bias towards practicality. That's just something to consider. Secondly, the article in question is written by Hugh Robjohns. He's the kind of guy about whom people might say, what he doesn't know about audio isn't worth knowing. Or, he's already forgotten more than I ever knew, except he hasn't forgotten it. I've met him and corresponded a number of times, and I enjoy reading his work. You should be able to pick up the March 2026 issue now, or I've linked to the Sound on Sound website in the description. Thirdly, well, there isn't a thirdly. Let's just get on with it. I'd imagine that what's going through viewers' minds right now, those who haven't clicked away to AI-generated cat videos already, is whether this is at all relevant. Perhaps it isn't. Reasons why professionals might like analog audio over Ethernet, for which there really should be a handy acronym, include 4 channels per cable, cost-effectiveness. Some say also better noise rejection and long-distance capability, although I'd like to see measurements on those. And that Ethernet is just more of a thing, sad to say, than audio. Ethernet cables are everywhere already. So how does this chime for domestic audio? Well, it doesn't really. I can see 4 channels per cable having a certain amount of interest, but 5.1 channels into 4 just doesn't go. But there's more to it than that. Apparently ostriches don't bury their head in the sand, but there's no reason humans should. If Ethernet is, one might say, a coming thing in professional audio, surely hi-fi enthusiasts should take at least a passing interest. I'd say that this is important. You're being sold to. Manufacturers, distributors, and people whose income depends on selling you expensive stuff that you don't need may, I said may, see you as a prospect. You have a strong interest in audio, you want your system to sound at its best, and you want to keep up with technological developments. Maybe you already have all the cable lifters, mains conditioners, and vibration-absorbing feet that you need. Maybe you'll need Ethernet cabling too, or think that you do. Now, don't take my word as any kind of gospel, but I'm struggling to see right now what benefit Ethernet cabling would provide for analog audio in the home. Things might, and probably will, change. Right now, I can't see it. Comments will be welcome if you think I'm wrong. But just as we've had marketed to us a whole range of extravagantly priced products and accessories, it would absolutely not surprise me if analog Ethernet cables and the adapters they need are not solidly pushed in the really quite near future. I said adapters, but consider how many items around your home have Ethernet already. It wouldn't take much of a push for audio equipment to have analog Ethernet. And who knows, a bit of engineering boffinry might be able to make any future Ethernet port dual purpose. Who knows what's going to happen next? Fewer people than who think they do, as I've noticed in many areas of human activity. So yes, I can predict a future for analog Ethernet in the home. Where I see it happening, simply for practicality, is a whole house network. Yes, we have those already, called Wi-Fi. But Wi-Fi isn't analog, and we know that audiophiles and enthusiasts like analog. So sit back, light up your pipe, using substances that are legal in your jurisdiction. Dream a little about your whole house network, piped through using analog Ethernet. I'll bet that it'll be a whole lot cheaper to get a computer guy or girl to do it than an audio installation specialist. If you go back to the article, you can find out which CAT type of cable will work best for you. FUD, FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. Actually, that's the wrong way around. You'd start with uncertainty, which would lead to doubt, and then perhaps to fear. Oh well, I didn't invent bad word ordering. What's going to happen? Another of my predictions that you should consider carefully whether you regard it as reliable. Another of my predictions is that once audiophiles and enthusiasts get wind of analog over Ethernet, can we just call it AOE? I know that's not a proper acronym and it's missing an A, but I wouldn't mind it. Yes, once these people get wind of AOE, it's going to be all over the audio community. Reviews, forums, Reddit, doom scrolling your favourite influencers on X. It's going to be a whole new wild west of the internet. And don't think you're immune. Whatever post you read and think that's a load of old tush, well, you've just given yourself a benchmark to judge other posts against. These posters won't just be singing the praises of AOE either. They'll be singing the doubts, the problems, the issues, all the more for you to worry about. And the kicker is that if you don't get involved, you'll be missing out, or at least you'll feel that you are. I have a few other issues that I'll skip here and instead invite my commenters to speculate what goodness or badness analog audio over Ethernet might bring. But, especially if you're a doubter, I have to tell you that you're in the game already. Studios and live sound operators are already using analog audio over Ethernet. Broadcasters too. So even if you only watch television, you've been captured. But suppose you've locked yourself away in your listening room. You have a fantastic source, preamp, DAC, whatever, and of course the most beautiful sounding speakers and acoustics. Maybe you didn't realise until now you're listening to the contamination of analog audio over Ethernet. It's all been done in the studio. No audiophile silver cables sprinkled with magic fairy dust, and the engineer who monitored and approved the sound wasn't even using cable lifters. Everything connected through Ethernet. Even mic level signals through an adapter or breakout box. OK, there's more to learn and know here, but I think I've given the surface a pretty good scratching. Again, I was inspired to make this video by the article Analog Audio over Ethernet in Sound on Sound magazine by Hugh Robjohns. Time, I feel, for a flurry of comments. See you soon.
Oh, no FUD here.
No FUD. No FUD zone.
See, and I'm kind of like him. I'm not sure if this is really going to develop too much, but the studios and the broadcasters is the interesting section where, you know, a lot of the studios probably already have their Ethernet already wired up in the building for one purpose. And if the modifications and the ability to utilize these ports that are already in the walls, if it's not too big of a modification, then yeah, of course, there are more options over your Ethernet port.
Oh yeah. I mean, as network administrators, we used to have, multiple networks coming in under our desk. Like we had access to the wiring closet. We could wire whatever we needed to the desk. So we could have, a test network, regular network, guest network, whatever. We could have all access to all the different networks right at the desk. Same idea. Those faceplates are all out there. This is all stuff that is, off the shelf stuff. So we could do all that. I was going to ask you for a network like yours in your house, how many of those cables did you actually, crimp yourself versus how many were all just, off the shelf 10 or 15 foot Ethernet cables?
Well, one thing I would have liked, my cousin came and rewired some things for us for the power and things like that. I would have liked to have replaced all the power jacks with the the hybrids that have power. They have Ethernet. We don't really need a phone line anymore, but it'd be nice to actually have wired Ethernet in all the power jacks throughout the house. I mean, now we're doing the Wi-Fi 7, so for what we're using it for, to get the TVs, to get video from the internet, whether it's going over the Wi-Fi or whether I'm getting it from the wired jack in the wall, really isn't that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah, but the main thing is that, the wiring is easy enough. It's off the shelf. It's right there. And if you need to, I mean, I've put I put ends on Cat 5 cable to, make my own cables when I needed to. I haven't needed to in some time, and Cat 6, Cat 5, whatever at this point. But, the idea is that it's stuff that is readily available and easy to do. I've never made an XLR cable. I've never put ends on an XLR cable. I mean, we've tested XLR cables. Well, my buddy Mike has a cable tester, so we can go through and we can check what's what and, see what needs to be replaced. But it's usually a replace thing, not a, I'm going to open it up and change or cut the end off and put a new end on it. There's options that we can do. I mean, I've seen Mike do that with power cords even. So, I mean, I know that it's possible. It's just not the kind of thing that I usually jump in and do.
No cables die on my watch.
Right? You just look at that cable with a stern look and you raise the eyebrow and you're going to work again, right? And, usually it just snaps right in and go, oh yeah. I was taking a break. I'm good.
Yeah. Another good point he made is that it might actually be easier to find, like, a computer guy who comes in and wires you up way faster than getting like a professional audio guy to come and do it.
Absolutely. And again,
to his point,
the jacks are right there.
To his point that like audiophiles, the ones who are hardcore, they want the best sounding sound they can get, and they do tend to love the sound of analog. They're the ones that are keeping records alive. And there is some use cases for this, but I see it more the purists.
Yeah, they're also the ones who have the gold covered cables and all of that kind of thing as well. Like when they want the absolute best, the best shielding and everything else, and then shielding on top of the shielding to make sure that nothing is getting in there. There's a lot of things that they would do on the very high end, audiophile end. But it's no different than what we would do if we had the ability to put all stuff in our studio. Like we would get the best speakers we could get if we had, if I had unlimited funds, I would have a lot better speakers in the house than I do. But I also don't listen to speakers here. Like I'm listening through my headphones. So it doesn't really matter what speakers I have in the house,
Yeah, some of them are the ones that buy the $90 monster cable instead of the $10 normal cable.
And again, you buy that $90 cable once, and as long as you don't lose it or have someone take it from you, then that lasts years and years. And if it does go bad, you bring it right back where you got it, and they hand you another one because they know that's a good cable.
I better only have to buy it once, monster.
That's the way I feel about Mogami cables, because I've bought 2 Mogami 1/4-inch cables, and that was like 15 years ago, and they're both sitting right there, and they both work exactly as they did the day I got them, and they're amazing. So I mean, I would recommend them any day.
Yeah. Well, very interesting at Audio Masterclass. I did not know I needed analog Ethernet cables, but I'm intrigued, and I definitely want to get that magazine.
Sound on Sound.
Yeah, it looks like my kind of magazine.
Our kind of magazine, for sure.
Yeah, and he does have a website where he's got courses and all sorts of advanced audio knowledge at audiomasterclass.com. Worth taking a look at.
Nice.
Now, more power, and we need to store it. And this one, it made me think of that battery, that clean battery that you showed me a couple of years ago. And I'm like, when you showed me that, I'm like, well, why aren't we doing this? This makes so much sense. And I know there's some limitations in some cases, and it's not going to be a battery for everything, but it could be, if it could be actually a clean car battery, that might be an interesting use.
Well, as we discussed before, there's a whole bunch of different use cases where different battery solutions are ideal, and other cases where they're not at all. So like lithium ion has been good for cars, but there's limitations. There's things where there would be, maybe sodium is better. So we're getting to there where it's much more abundant, for example, and something that if the chemistry works out and the power density is fine and the charge times and all that, like they start working through some of these hurdles, and they'll be able to make that work. But the question is, again, whether it's abundant materials, whether it's materials that are scarce, whether the problem is cooling, whether the problem is, charging fast enough. There's all kinds of different targets you have to hit when it comes to automotive batteries versus other kinds of batteries. So that's one thing as far as automotive. But when we talked about a little while ago, we talked about one that was liquid metal batteries, for example, where things were running at very high temperatures. And it was almost like the materials were as abundant as dirt. So you can get them anywhere, locally sourced. you make this battery, but this battery would obviously not be in a car because you're not going to have liquid metal sloshing around inside of a car when you're driving around.
You don't want to have.
No, but this would be more for grid stabilization, which would help for the renewables, as you were saying before, where you've got the solar, but it's intermittent. You've got the wind, but it's intermittent. You need to try to balance the baseline energy, and you need to balance it with the demand that you have, and you need to match that as closely as you can. So there's a number of, having as much as we can coming into the grid and having the closest control we can to match the demand is what's important, to not overload the grid and not have sagging power when we need it.
Yeah. And of like all the things that this would be most relevant to, it would be long-term, cheaper storage of, because we can generate the power, we just can't contain it for very long.
And again, we've seen some where there was thermal storage, where they were doing it in sand, for example, a big container of sand where they run piping through it and send liquid through it to put the heat into the sand, and they can extract the heat later to then extract energy from that. So there's a number of different ways to do it, but I think I love the all of the above strategy of let's think about all the different ways to do it, and we probably find a use case where this is the best place to use this particular technology.
Yeah. The solution doesn't have to fit every scenario. It just has to fit a couple of them, a couple of useful ones. Yep.
Exactly.
So at Just Have a Think, which not new to us, but a freshie now on our subscription list. So we're probably going to see some cool suggestions coming out of here.
Absolutely.
And this one, he really does cover the different challenges, the different types of batteries that are currently available and where the obstacles have been. And we're talking iron and air here.
Yep.
Abundant.
Oh yeah, exactly. Where are we going to find air?
Well, maybe in the future it might become scarce and
break out a can.
Yeah, a little Perrier.
Yeah, that's right where I was going.
I hope I don't need that for my batteries, otherwise it's going to get expensive again.
Exactly.
So let's see how they're actually looking at utilizing this kind of battery and how it could help on the bigger grid challenge.
Exactly.
Back in early 2022, we took a look at what was then one of the most intriguing new ideas in long-duration energy storage, the iron-air battery developed by a US company called Form Energy. It was a simple concept, almost elegantly crude in a way, based on nothing more exotic than iron, water and air. The idea promised days of energy storage at a fraction of the cost of lithium-ion, using materials so abundant they made lithium look like rocking horse doo-doo. Then in early 2023, we took another look to see what progress had been made. And it was promising, but pretty limited. Now, those two videos got a lot of attention, but they also prompted plenty of you to leave comments like, "Sounds great, Dave, but will it actually happen?" We're almost 3 years down the line now from that last video, so I thought it might be time to have a look at what's been built, what hasn't, what's working, and what's still to come in what I reckon is a fascinating little niche of the clean tech landscape that has the potential to become a very big player indeed. Hello, and welcome to Just Have a Think. So let's start with the problem that iron-air energy storage is trying to solve then. And to be blunt, it's intermittency. Unless you've been living in a cave for the last few years, you can't fail to have noticed that wind and solar power have been climbing relentlessly upwards along an exponential adoption curve. According to the energy think tank Ember, in 2024, while hydro, nuclear and other clean energies remain flat or falling, growth in wind and solar pushed all clean energies upwards to more than 40% of total global electricity generation. Despite the misguided ramblings of the US president during his recent speech at the World Economic Forum,
China makes almost all of the windmills, and yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that?
China actually has more wind capacity than the next 18 countries combined. And since 2020, it's been adding more solar power each year than the rest of the world combined as well, reaching its overall 2030 renewables capacity target 6 years early in 2024. I could keep going with record-breaking stats from other regions like India, Pakistan and Europe, and even in the United States, renewable capacity is on the up and up, supplying just over 20% of electricity in the first half of 2025. Now, I'm not going to patronise you by explaining what the limitations of wind and solar technologies are. You know what the limitations are. So although in the future, when the world has massively overbuilt wind and solar to largely cope with the lulls in energetic weather that our German friends call the Dunkelflaute, in the near term, we are going to need to plug the gaps if we want to keep the lights on 24/7. You've no doubt seen these types of charts before, with a logarithmic scale going up the y-axis representing the most economically optimum discharge times for various energy storage technologies. I won't show you every option here because it'd get too busy, but you've got things like flywheels down here that can discharge relatively small amounts of residual energy for short periods to help with a bit of grid frequency regulation. Then at the other end of the scale, you've got so-called power to gas, which typically uses excess electricity to combine hydrogen with carbon dioxide to make methane. Lithium-ion batteries, fantastic as they are, don't generally get used to cover multi-day lulls. The economics don't stack up particularly well after about 6 to 8 hours of discharge. Pumped hydro works beautifully where there are mountains and water, but there are plenty of places that are not blessed with those topological features, aren't there? So long duration energy storage, anything from 50 to 150 hours, is no longer a nice to have. It's becoming a structural requirement for our increasingly renewables dominated grids. And that's exactly the niche Iron Air aims to occupy. Quick recap of how it works? Why not? Here's a snippet from my previous video. The two main ingredients are basically nothing more sophisticated than good old iron and fresh air. Both are extremely abundant, both are easily accessible, and importantly, both are cheap. The principle of Form's technology is something they refer to as reversible rusting. One of their batteries contains between 10 and 20 stacks of cells, each of which has an anode consisting of pebble-sized pellets of metallic iron on one side and an air-breathing cathode on the other side, all immersed in a water-based, non-flammable electrolyte. As oxygen from the air floods into the battery cell, it reacts with the iron via the liquid electrolyte. That reaction reduces the air to hydroxide and oxidizes the iron firstly into iron hydroxide, which releases electrons, and then into iron oxide, which releases more electrons, all of which can then be harvested to provide electrical energy. As the battery discharges, that rust slowly builds up at the cathode. A full discharge cycle can take up to 100 hours, or roughly 4 days, and unlike lithium-ion batteries, these things can operate quite happily in a very wide temperature range without expensive cooling systems. To recharge the battery, an electrical current can be passed through the cells, which reverses the reaction, liberating the oxygen from the rust and turning it back into iron. That process also takes about 100 hours, so again, not suited to devices that pander to the human obsession with instant gratification, but still perfectly serviceable in a well-planned utility-scale environment. So it's slow and heavy and completely unsuitable for mobile applications, but for fixed grid storage, it has enormous potential. The chemistry naturally supports 100-hour discharge durations, and the materials cost is astonishingly low. So what's the latest state of play with Form Energy then? Well, like so many post-Inflation Reduction Act clean tech projects in the US, Form ran into supply chain bottlenecks, higher than expected construction costs, labour shortages, long lead times for heavy industrial equipment, and more stringent permitting than expected. All external pressures that delayed their original timeline. But Form Energy's factory is now operational in Weirton, right in the heart of the American Rust Belt, on the site of a former steel mill. And according to the company's CEO, Matteo Jaramillo, speaking in November 2025 on the YouTube channel of the investment firm SOSV, Form Energy is now fully up and running with manufacturing and has just shipped to its first major customer, Great River Energy, a generation transition cooperative in Minnesota, serving roughly 1 million members through 22 different cooperative outlets. One of the many advantages of Form's configuration is that their modular unit can be shipped dry, in other words, without the electrolyte. And because it's a water-based electrolyte that can be easily mixed by large, well-established third-party suppliers, that liquid can simply be ordered in once the units are in place and basically poured straight into each battery. That's a smart feature that vastly reduces shipping and handling costs. Jaramillo explained that the company now has a backlog of orders with signed contracts filling up production capacity right through to 2028, including partners like XL, Georgia Power and Dominion. Expansion has already begun at the Weirton site, bringing Form Energy one step closer to their goal of having an annual production capacity of 500 megawatts, which, don't forget, equates to 50 gigawatt hours of energy discharge. The plan is to grow their vertically integrated supply and production chain from 300 to 750 employees by 2028. In fact, if you're in the States and you fancy a career in this kind of thing, then check out their website because they're apparently hiring in West Virginia, Massachusetts, and California. And iron air technology appears to be gaining a bit of traction elsewhere in the world as well. In July 2025, a Netherlands-based company called Aurally launched Europe's first grid-connected iron air demonstrator in the city of Delft. It's a pretty small-scale affair, but it's a significant step. Operating conditions in high-humidity maritime climates are a great stress test for the chemistry. The company is also planning to ramp up production to 50 gigawatt hours with a 2030 timeline for that goal. Over in India, where this sort of technology would surely be a real game changer in the energy transition, a startup called Mine Electric raised new funding in 2024 to push iron air from lab to early deployment. They're positioning themselves as Asia's first iron air manufacturer, targeting 12 to 24-hour duration applications. And there are apparently iron air research and development clusters in Japan, Israel, and Germany. None of those has reached commercial operations yet, but they do give us a glimpse of a rising global interest in metal air options as the energy transition ramps up at pace and stationary energy storage continues to strengthen its market position. So can we all get giddy and excited yet? Well, maybe. 3 things have shifted since I first took a look at Form Energy back in 2022. Firstly, grid limitations and storage requirements are now crystal clear. Multi-day storage isn't optional in a deeply renewable grid. All the major grid operators around the world are now actively modelling multi-day storage as a core requirement. Secondly, Form Energy's moved from concept through to construction and real-world deployment. That's a big deal. Unlike many other optimistic tech startups in recent years, Form has successfully crossed the dreaded valley of death that kills off roughly 90% of energy tech newcomers. Thirdly, the economics look increasingly compelling. If Form can hit the generally accepted target price of around $20 per kilowatt hour at system level, then iron air represents one of the cheapest forms of long-duration storage ever devised. Combine that with the incentives from the Inflation Reduction Act, or at least what's left of them anyway, and iron air battery storage could just possibly become a cornerstone of a US grid transition that is happening, whether Mr. Trump likes it or not. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, but that's it for this week. Thanks as always to the fantastic folks over at patreon.com/justeverthink who enable me to keep ads and sponsorship messages out of all my videos. And I must just give a quick extra special thank you to some folks who joined recently with pledges of $10 or more a month. They are John Spock, Steve Bell, Daniel Lichow, Jerry Beauregard, Ian Painter and Erin Shimpson. And of course a massive thank you to everyone else who's joined recently too. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us get to our next target of 700,000 subscribers. And most important of all, thanks for watching this far. Very much appreciated. Have a great week, and remember to just have a think. See you next week.
Oh, Dave, we've joined too.
Yep. And that chart was
we'll get you to that 700,000.
That's right. That chart was one of the big things there, where it shows the different areas where the different technologies are useful, and showing that iron air is occupying a spot that is unoccupied right now shows you that it does fill, it does have a home, in our whole mix of things there.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a worthy consideration as we weigh out the different options. It really got me thinking, like what we were looking at last week, and the scale of things, and like, how do you make this little version of a drone into a big version of a drone? How do you make this little version of a battery into a big version that can actually do what if they can get down to, what did he say, $20 per kilogram watt?
Kilowatt hour probably, but the question was, also, or what I was seeing with the intentional rusting, what they were calling, like basically reversible rusting, where you rust the iron and then you unrust it. Like we've all seen rusted iron, right? So you've seen how, you get a piece of iron or piece of a car or whatever sitting in a field and it rusts over time. This is something that you can now reverse electronically, like or you add electricity and it reverses the process through the battery. But what I see not happening there is the dendrites that you would normally see in batteries that are usually a problem, where you get something growing across the barrier and causing a problem, where in this case, nothing's really attaching. It's the iron itself is rusting and it's already there. So you're just rusting the iron that's already there and then unrusting the iron that's there. And it should not have the same kinds of problems that you'll see in lithium ion, where you get the dendrites going across and short circuiting happening. So that was a point about that, is that it won't have the same kinds of issues that you would have in other types of battery technology.
Yeah, I like how he showed that chart of all the different approaches and where lithium does fit in, and where this fits in kind of the middle of the whole idea.
And flywheel. Some people might be surprised to see flywheel on there because they're like, wait, what century is this? I mean, flywheel? Really? Something you spin something real fast and that helps. But yes, you spin
Some
big
things never
flywheels.
change.
Yeah. You also have to watch out for those, as far as like, something goes wrong, that thing can launch something very heavy into a wall.
And I do think this is a good time to actually focus on this, because as he said, we're going to hit a point where how many windmills and solar panels can we put up if we don't have a solution like this? It will not matter if we blanket this planet with them. We're going to need to be able to control our consistency of power every day, all the time.
Yeah. One of the things that I found interesting about, they were talking about energy, in general, energy production in general, and how solar, once you produce the panel and you have it out there wired up, that's it. Like as far as it's there, and it's just going to keep making electricity over time and for the life of the panel. Whereas most other things, like you're extracting oil from the ground, now you're going to burn that, and now it's done. It's like it's a consumable. It's not a piece of technology. Whereas the solar, you make it and now it's made and it'll just give you electricity for years to come. So that's the kind of technology that.
But it will only get electricity when the sun is out. So there's a catch.
Yes, but there are also ways around that, where we've looked at certain ways to increase the amount of electricity generated. We've looked at ways of generating power at night based on the amount of light that's hitting, but there's different things that can be done, but it's not going to be full power all the time from that. And we're not looking to replace everything with solar either. That's again where the all of the above option is what I'm looking at, because the cost of the solar and the wind has come down so drastically over time, and that does continue to just go down. The cost of producing panels and producing windmills have their own issues with the amount of space they take and the size of the objects and blocking views and all that kind of stuff. So there are other issues with that, but I do see solar and wind, as well as, nuclear is coming around in terms of fusion. There are some very promising things going on with fusion in many different ways, because I've been following a bunch of them, and some of them electricity along a Z pinch, some of them were more physical, some of them were more trying to get the tokamaks and the very large magnets and the super strong magnetic fields going. There's a lot of different approaches, and a lot of them have merit, and a lot of them seem like they could really go somewhere. But the main thing is being able to have a consistent energy generating thing going on. And there's a couple of them that have really started to reach milestones that could be significant at this point.
Yeah, one of the reasons why nuclear is back on the topic is the demands for AI power. And, we are cryptocurrency. There's certain things that are using power in massive levels. Interesting when he mentioned China and how they do have windmills, and they're the ones actually trying to utilize everything they can, because they have a time of year where the water coming down from the mountains, they generate massive amounts of power for a small chunk of the year just from nature that way, being able to store it for the rest of the year. If you can generate like that and be able to actually have excess power that you can use for the rest of the year, that would be useful for them.
Yeah, I have seen some. I watched something about the Three Gorges Dam, one of the largest dams in the world, and it does generate so much electricity. They do have some issues as far as its general purpose to start with was to try to eliminate or alleviate flooding problems in above and below the dam, and it displaced a lot of people in order to get the dam there. There are issues with the dam. They do still have to open it in order to allow water to go through, to not allow it to fail. If the rainy season is particularly bad, they still have to let the water through, which does exacerbate the flooding further down. So some people get worse flooding than they would have had before. So, it is kind of, a trade-off, but they did need power, and they did want to put a big project like this up, and they did want to try to control some of the flooding. But the question really came down to, did it accomplish the goals that they wanted it to? But again, as you were saying, with AI is one of the big things that's going to be taking a lot of power. Cryptocurrency is going to be taking a lot of power. Basically, the all of the above for power generation is what I'm interested in. Like, I'm not looking to shut down coal and this and that. I mean, it would be best to get our dependency off of it, but the coal.
Well, yeah, in the long run, we do need to get off fossil fuels, or at least not be so dependent on them. We got to have some kind of balance there.
Exactly. And again, that's where, as solar and wind technology has taken off, the number of panels go up, the number of windmills go up, the cost keeps coming down. Same will go with as fusion comes around, which I suspect will be very soon now. It's been 20 years away for the last 100 years. So but now I think we're actually getting to that window, and especially again with AI, being able to control certain things like there were things like the flow of the plasma in tokamak reactors. It's very difficult to control, and it's similar to how the first stealth fighters we built had the very angular wings because we couldn't do the calculations for the curved surfaces because computers weren't quite there yet. It's the same kind of a thing where AI is able to look at these flows in the plasma and figure out ways to keep the plasma to keep itself together. And some of the newest ones I've seen actually use certain tricks of the way that they're dealing with the plasma to make it contain itself. Like the plasma actually contains itself, and they put a strong electric field on it, and that's what does the compression. So you don't need these very strong external magnets for a huge tokamak like you would normally have. You can make these small modular reactors that are more like you can fit inside of a shipping container and be able to ship it somewhere, put it in a hardened, shell so that it's safe. And then just from that, again, passive safety procedures and all that, so that if it does, lose power, for example, it drains the fuel out and stops having a reaction as opposed to going critical, all that kind of thing. So there are a lot of safety features built into the newer fusion reactors that they're coming to, but the designs I'm seeing are very promising.
I keep going back down the fusion rabbit hole. Sabina, we were looking at one of her videos last week. She's been hitting the fusion topic pretty often lately, and that's what tells me like we're making progress.
I want to say the one I watched just recently on that was this is Just Have a Think. We just mentioned Sabina. 2-Bit Da Vinci, I think, was the one that I watched a video on recently. We'll check that channel again.
I know which channel you're talking
but
about.
On that channel is where I saw the one about this. I think it was about a thorium reactor, but it's again small modular reactor that could fit inside of a shipping container essentially.
We're gonna have another power night. Yes. This stuff is as fascinating to me as space.
Yeah, and storage, storage is equally important because we have many ways of generating electricity. It's about matching supply and demand as closely as we can, and about having that ability to have some backup for when there is nothing being generated.
Yeah, if we can solve this hurdle, there's not much left for hurdles. I mean, we've solved a lot.
And again, AI can be useful in this as well, helping us to stabilize and control that, because there are so many different ways of storing, again, the flywheels in that bottom corner over there, like the question comes down to some of these technologies, they take a while to spin up to get to where they're actually contributing to the grid. And then when you turn it off, it takes a while to spin down. Some of them come up very quickly. And so you can immediately bring some, online to match demand. But each technology has its place and has its niche. That is where it basically belongs, that makes it useful. Having them all in the mix is useful because we can have different things for different times, the right tool for the right time.
Yeah, it'll take them a while to figure out. Just like you said, they can measure what they're generating. So at least you've got one consistency that you can measure from, and the variable is how many of these will it take in order to cover everything we need.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we were talking about coal. Like that's one of the things that they have. They're called peaker plants, which is basically a coal-fired power plant that is offline most of the time. But when there's a high electricity demand, they can call them up and say, "Fire it up!" And boom, they can start shoveling coal in, and all of a sudden, the boilers are going up, and they can bring electricity capacity online. But another thing about that is that if you wanted to get some of these phased out, these coal plants, these shipping container small modular reactors could be brought in to where into where the coal plant is, because you already have all of the electricity infrastructure right there, and you're just dropping in a new power source right there. So I mean,
I really like the thinking they did with the parts necessary, and if you don't have to ship it with the liquid,
with the volatile stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a smart approach. If you can actually break up how you're getting these things implemented, and you make it as cost efficient and convenient as you possibly can for rollout.
Yeah. And what they're shipping at that point, it's iron. I mean, how dangerous is that? I mean, we ship iron all over the place all the time.
I am Iron Man.
Right. And then when it gets there, you're going to put the liquid in, fine. But, that's on site. And again, you can mix it. They have people that can mix it wherever, get it in there. And then, then it is a volatile thing maybe. But again, then it's already in place. You're not driving that down the highway. The thing that's driving down the highway is metal.
It seems a much safer approach. So bravo for thinking ahead.
Exactly. Good stuff.
And at Just Have a Think. So
great stuff on the channel for sure.
They had a thought there, and I like what you're covering. We will be back.
Absolutely.
So now to finish things off, David Bendeth, really like what he talks about here. Something that, in the back when we're listening to people's songs and, sometimes giving tips on how you can improve the song or the songwriting, the approach. I find myself talking about the things he talks about here all the time. Like how do you layer and bring in your instruments? How do you approach your part changes and your transitions? Where's the dynamics coming from?
That's the big one for me, dynamics. Yeah.
And that's a big part of what he's going to talk about here is being able to control those dynamics in different ways. And at D Bendeth over on YouTube, and he calls it a trick, but I see it as a philosophy. I see it as a this is my work ethics for how I approach these things.
Best practices.
Yeah. And I think there's really powerful advice here on getting the kind of impact out of a song that you want to get when you're recording.
Yep. Nice.
I want to take a minute to talk about this thing that I have that I'm sure a lot of you have as well. And it's called the 8-second rule. And it's something I live by, certainly when I'm recording or even mixing, and sometimes even in pre-production. And I feel like there's certain elements you're going to have for a song, you're going to have, if you have drums and bass, keyboards and guitars, or horns or whatever it might be, those elements are going to be a part of the song. But when you're creating music, the idea would to have things that developed and opened up as the song went along. This helps with dynamics. This helps with giving the emotion when you add something. So I'm not saying you don't need to change the song in the middle. You don't need to go somewhere completely different unless you're trying to do that, which you could. But I'm saying the 8-second rule introduces a new element. What that would be if you're done a first verse and it's kind of bare and there's nothing there. Maybe it's just a guitar or a piano with a vocal. As the second verse happens, you can open up the song by adding even just a floor of sound noise, which is, we used to record air in the studio and add it into the track just so that you had a hiss. All these little things, I think U2, With or Without You, is a great example of the verses with that ghost keyboard, where you've got the singing and there's like this real kind of guitar arpeggio thing, but then there's this eerie ghost sound on the keyboard and it opens up the whole track. So I like to think that every 8 seconds, something new happens. Another example would be if you're doing a chorus. Every chorus is exactly the same with exactly the same part. You're basically making cookie cutter. So chorus 1 would be the same as chorus 2, would be the same as chorus 3 and 4. But adding things, especially at the end of the song, gives you a lasting impression that the song had thought that had gone into it. I'll give you an example of that. If you listen to Yes, Owner of the Lonely Hearts, when you get to the end of the song, yes, it's got the chorus, but the bass line changes, the vocal changes, but the groove is staying exactly the same. And when the song ends, the first thing I want to do is go right back to the beginning and wonder how they got there. So this 8-second rule kind of gives you an awareness that just because you think something sounds great and nothing's reintroduced doesn't necessarily mean that people have that kind of listening ability to have the same feeling you do about it. And I kind of feel like with people playing video games these days and, you know, the amount of phone calls and texting and everything that goes on, it's hard to keep somebody focused. And I feel like when you grow the song and you add things to the song, it's going to make people way more invested in the lyrics and the music. I want to give some examples of things that add to a song. For example, I might add percussion in a second verse where I've got a shaker or a tambourine. I might bring that in. I might bring in a sequenced keyboard in the second chorus that was never there before. It's in the background, but if you took it away, you would miss it. I might bring in feedback. I mean, one of my bigger songs was Misery Business. I don't think people realize in the second verse, that it's screaming feedback, but way low in the track. But if you listen carefully, it's there, and it doesn't go away. And if I was to turn it up loud, you'd be going like that. Oh my God, that's so loud. But that's what it is, it's feedback. Those kinds of textures, guitar parts playing arpeggiated parts, with delays on them, they really help. And of course, the greatest being the background vocals, where you're throwing in a harmony on a word, or you're throwing in a pre-chorus, you might add some color by doubling or even singing oohs and ahs. This is the beauty of what the Beatles did, using mellotron, using string ideas. These are little things that come in that enhance the song that you want to keep low in the mix, not muddy. But, and again, I'm one of these people that believe, you know, if it's really down low and you don't hear it, take it out. If it's too loud, it's probably going to kill the vocals. So finding that sweet spot for that 8-second rule and just maybe having something come in. It can even come in like that and fade away really quickly. So these are creative ideas that is the producer's responsibility. It's really important to understand your role and not overproduce something, but do what the song is asking you to do, which I'm sure you've heard that expression many times. It's so true. Certain songs need a little bit of love. They need maybe bigger drum sounds in sections. But being aware of not just being the producer or the writer, try and make yourself the listener. This has come up a lot lately with mixing, and these are my observations, they may not be yours. But today's successful mixer is probably more of a mastering person than they are an actual mixer. These are people that are using a lot of limiting, a lot of compressing, and make everything brick-walled so that any kind of recording dynamics that were done are lost in the song. And it really, you would only know if you heard the original before it was mixed. So once you're starting to build dynamics into a song, once you're starting to build in drama into a song, if everything's on 10, and that's okay if you're doing Slayer, or if you're doing Megadeth, or or any kind of black metal band, you can do that. That's the excitement of it. One of my favorite new bands is Deaf Haven, and I actually listen to it to chill out because it doesn't stop. Although the levels are pretty good on that record, I think that's a great record. But again, it's like you want to make sure that people immerse themselves into the song, that you draw them into the song. And so you have to be very careful when introducing things that it's not going to be brick walled and everything's going to be loud, because the subtlety, I don't think I'd be able to get away with my kind of big choruses that I've done without making my pre-chorus mono in a lot of cases, trying to make everything move in so that when the chorus comes in, it opens back up and it's wide again. If you're making a really loud pre-chorus with lots of things going on in it, when your chorus hits, it's just going to be a dud. It's going to hit the wall. So you've got to be aware that a chorus, if you want it to, and you want it to explode and smack somebody in the head, be careful about the 10 seconds that comes before it. I use my master fade. This is a great example. Like, I'll be mixing. This is a good little trick, actually. I'll start the song here, and when the chorus hits, I'll just kick it up a dB. And then as the song comes back out of the chorus, I'll write a little note here next to the master fader, but I'll bring it back slowly, or if I have to do it quickly. So I'm giving, that's a level boost, but at the same time, I'm following that with making instruments come up with that. So it's giving you that effect.
No hitting the wall.
Oh, and I love your work on the Paramore stuff, David.
Nice. Yeah.
I like his tip on be the listener when you are actually in mixing mode. And I think a lot of engineers, they forget that that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be listening. It's not just about like moving the knobs and the dials. You really have to get into the ears of your listeners.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times they're wearing the mixing hat and the mastering hat, right? They just forget that there's other hats on the rack. They got to get that listener hat and make sure they've put that on, because, it's like taking one of your songs and doing the car test, bring it out to your car and see what it sounds like in your car stereo, see what it sounds like on your little headphones, see what it sounds like on a little boom box, whatever, test it in different places as the listener. That's the important thing.
And I like his suggestion on if it's so low in volume that you can barely hear it, then what's it there for?
Take it out. Yeah, absolutely.
And same problem if you go too high, and finding that with his approach to having like kind of subtle subliminal sound, like what he mentioned when they use noise just to give it a certain feel. Sometimes you do want it to be subliminal, but it should still be there. It shouldn't be something that I hear when I got the headphones on, but I don't hear it in the car.
Yep. But now take that example of the feedback that he had. And if you take that track and you listen to it in the car and in the house and in the headphones and everywhere else, is the feedback too loud in any of those places? Because if it is, then it needed to be mixed a little bit lower even. You know what I mean? Because
I can vouch it was just right, because I used to crank that part of the song and like, yes, I love this.
Exactly. And that's my point, is that, that's how you can tell where it sat in the mix, where it sat where it should. If it was a little bit too loud, then in at least one of those tests, it would come across as too loud. And like he said, you'd be holding your ears and like, oh, that's too much.
Yeah. His suggestions on what kind of instruments you can use to serve these feedback, man, that goes back to the classic days. Ever since we got electric guitars, somebody's been utilizing feedback.
Oh, and even air. He said we would record air just to have something. And again, whether it's a hiss or air or whatever, you have some kind of sound. There was one Fish song, or it might have been Mike Gordon, the bass player from Fish song, where he was, walking on a treadmill or running on a treadmill in his house and just with headphones on, but then heard what the treadmill sounded like. It was making just a very repetitive kind of a sound, but it had kind of a groove to it. So he just recorded that and it became the basis of a song. So like the sound of the running on the treadmill, and then the bass kicks in and it goes from there, so that kind of a thing. Any kind of a sound can become part of whatever. We've seen that with Rebele.
Exercise.
We've seen that with Mark Rebele, where he just starts out with any kind of a chuk, and then just builds an entire masterpiece out of that.
Yeah. Good stuff. And when he got into like taking the cookie cutter approach, because sometimes like songwriter just really wants to get it done. It's like, I already did this part once, I don't need to do it like 3-4 times, so I'm just gonna reuse. And yeah, that does work but there is something special about like having each chorus be a little unique. And his example with Yes and how the song ends versus how it started, and um, if you can give each chorus a little bit like, hey, the first chorus kind of softer coming in, you're introduced to the chorus. The second chorus, there's a little more there than there was that first one. By the third one, it's built up, and the finale, it's like, wow, we throw everything at you.
Yep. Or even by the last one, that's where all the instrumentation drops away and it's just
Break
acapella.
down. Yeah, that's the other way to do it, is you do a breakdown at the end and leaves you with that last instrument like, wow, I need to play
Kinda
it
haunting,
again.
right? Couple ways to do it, but some good ideas there for sure.
Yeah, well, just great tips all around. That was chock full of songwriting, recording, producing advice. You want to make your song really appeal more to those listeners. These tips are gold.
Absolutely. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for all of that, David. And thank you for the great music you have done.
Yes, indeed.
Kick ass. And subscribe.
Just like that.
Yes,
On the list.
We have to add you to our IT. I've got them over on mine already, but
Exactly.
that was good. I told you we were going to put on our thinking caps tonight.
Yep. And that's where mine rubbed off all the rest of my hair. But that's okay.
We're going to have to get you another head.
Well, I do have my other hair over here. But we'll save that for another time.
That's good for the summertime hair.
That's for the volleyball game.
But that was some great information. I definitely would like to go further on the battery stuff and power generation. That's a topic I can fill a whole night with.
Oh yeah, for sure. And as I said, there's some new stuff that we saw, whether it was 2-bit DaVinci. There's a couple different ones for fusion power coming up. One was about thorium reactors, small modular reactors. There's been a couple of different ones. One was on, was it Abalon Energy? It just had a different method where it basically was using, sending in two beams of energy shooting at each other from the two sides, as opposed to some of the other techniques that they use. So there's a few different methods that they use for inertial confinement fusion. And, they use the lasers over at the National Ignition Facility.
They're using lasers.
Lasers, man. 192 of the most powerful lasers on the planet. Yeah, it's
it'd be really cool if you had sharks shooting at each other that way.
Well, all you gotta do is bring the sharks and get them trained up outside. They can wear the lasers later. We'll work that out. We'll work that out. Sharks with freaking laser beams, man.
If anybody can come up with it, it's you.
We'll make it happen. If we need to. That's the thing, is let's not create a solution without a problem, right?
Sharks with lasers could be a problem.
and
shooting them at me.
And what are they really solving anyway, right? Like we can't solve in other ways without training a shark to carry a laser and use it responsibly.
I'm going to give a dolphin a laser. Those sharks
that would be
don't
better.
Stand a chance.
That would be better for sure. I trust the dolphin more.
Not that I don't trust you, sharks, but
no.
Dolphins are cool.
Yes. And sharks could eat me almost whole, so yeah.
Well, it might take 2 sharks for you.
It might, but that's just means done, 2 bites. Just a snack.
They're one good Jaws.
Yeah. And for a megalodon, I mean, I would barely register as a snack. But I don't think we have to worry about them just now.
We'll chew on that for this week, and we'll be back next Thursday. We've also got Wally on Monday. New interview with 3ality on Tuesday.
Nice.
Ange just did that one about a week and a half ago. And then she'll be out on Wednesday to whip it out. We had a wild night last night.
Nice.
And
Good
then
stuff.
we'll be back again every
We'll be
Thursday
back
night.
on Thursday. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Night, everyone.
See.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and MIDI too. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much RAM. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking